Hi everybody, Trent here, and today I'm going to give you a quick demo on Baselight. You might have seen our wonderful CTO Alfonso's tweet talking about his Tortilla Index. A lot of people have actually been talking about it, so I wanted to show a little example of how to build this out in Baselight and show some of the functionality that we have. So what he's looking at is the general overall price of tortillas, and then trying to see if there's any correlation with the general overall price of stocks. Specifically looks like Chipotle and Yum brands and a few others that he has in the actual query itself. So we're going to recreate this today. I'm going to show you how to do it. And hopefully we're going to do this all in one take. Let's see how it goes. So first off, we're here in Baselight, and this is our general homepage. You can see we have our recent queries here at the top that I've been looking at, but obviously we're looking at something different that is not in these ones. So what we're going to do first is go and find some data. So let's go to the data catalog and click here. And just really quickly to remind you, you can always sort by type for topics over here on the left-hand side, or you can use the search data sets. So first off, to create the Tortilla Index, let's see what data we have on tortillas in general. Looks like we have a few different things here. One's a chat GPT-4 conversation database. I don't know if that's exactly what we want to look at today, but we have this one that says tortilla prices in Mexico. So let's quickly take a look at what this is. And we'll notice here that there's a very robust description here. Now, these descriptions will vary based off of the different data sets that you click on. However, this one seems to be very well described, so we're very happy with our wonderful source here. Looks like we have over 270,000 records of tortilla prices in Mexico. That's awesome. We have from 53 cities, 384 mom and pop stores, and 120 retail stores. We see on the right-hand side, this category is under finance and economics. We have a license here that if we wanted to learn more about it, we could always click on. We're not going to for the sake of this video, just for time, but we could if we wanted to. And we also see what the source is. So this was Kaggle. So we're going to go to tables here really quick. I just want to take a look at what this data actually is before we commit to it. And we can see that we have a bunch of different variables here at the top, and then some of the data down here. There's also 289,000 plus rows. We're not going to go through all of those. That would take too much time, but you could if you wanted to, right? So we have the state, the city, the year, the month, the day the data was taken from, the store type, and the price. Now, if we wanted to have a little bit more granular insights into how to work with this data when we do start creating our queries, we can always click here. This is going to show you the name of the variable and the type. And obviously, this is very important when we're using SQL to find our queries, find our insights. That way we know how to actually interact with these variables, right? So that's going to be, this information is accompanying every single one of the data sets that you could pick from here on Baselight. Now let's say I'm excited, tortilla prices seem great. I'm going to need this for my index anyway. So I'm going to click Add to Query. And you can see here are 3 other queries that I've done before. None of these have to do with tortillas. So we're going to click Add to New Query. And we're going to do Tortilla Index live demo, looking at the prices of tortillas and stocks. All right. So now we have a little query title here. We have our description. We can always go back in and change these whenever we want to, but we're just going to keep it like this for now. And if I wanted to, I can make this private by clicking here. You can see now this is just going to be me that can see this. Not everybody can. However, I like sharing my insights with all of you. So we're going to have everyone can see this query. So next, let's click Create Query. And you'll notice now we're here in our query engine. We have here the pinned table. So we have tortilla prices in Mexico. We can click this little arrow, see the types of the actual table that we have. So if there are multiple tables, for example, there's just one in this data set. There are multiple that actually pop down here, and I'll show that to you in a second when we add another data set in here. But we can also click one more time, get a little bit more granular, and see the individual variables, and again, their types. They're just right here. So now that we have tortilla prices, let's go find information on stock prices, right? We're going to need that if we're trying to correlate these two things. So I don't want to leave my query engine here. I want to stay on this while still looking for data. So instead of clicking on data catalog, I'm actually going to do Command K on my Mac here. And we can search for data sets directly in our query engine, right? So one of the key things that you want to do, though, is don't press enter whenever you type in the words that we're going to look for, right? So let's do that right now. We're going to type in NASDAQ. That's probably a pretty good search term to find stocks. And here you can see all of these things have now popped up directly here in my query engine window. We're going to scroll down a little bit. I want the oldest one I can find. This one says to 1962. That sounds pretty good. So let's click on this and see what it is. So we have NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, another New York Stock Exchange, and OTC deals as well. I want to learn a little bit more about what this actually is. So I'm going to click this down arrow. And you can see here we have the date the data was taken from, the ticker, type of exchange, the open, the high, the low, the closing price, adjusted closing price, volume. This looks great. And just like what we could when we typed or we looked at the tortilla data set, we can always see what the variables are and the type of variables that they are. So we have the name here, right, and the type of variable. Again, this is key to understanding when we are manipulating this data using SQL. So let's say I'm happy with this data. I'm going to click Add to Query. And now it's been added right here. So remember when I said we could learn a little bit more about the data simply by clicking these arrows? So you can see here that when you do that tortilla, only one thing comes up, right? Just one data set, or one table, sorry, with tortilla prices. But when we're looking at this data from the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, OTC trades and whatnot, you'll see there's actually the 4 different data sets here, or the 4 tables, I mean, within this data set. And again, we can learn more about each one of these by clicking the little down arrow, and it has the names of the variables and the types that they are. Now, to do this, you have seen Alfonso's tweet. You've clicked the link to go take a look at the query. It is long. We're not going to type the entire query out live. That would take too much time. I'm a little bit of a slow typer, but I do want to type at least some of it out with you, just so you can see the capabilities and how easy this query engine makes it for you to develop your own, right? So we're just going to start with the term with, and you can see it starts filling it out for you, right? It makes its best guess at what you're trying to put into. So we're going to do with space stock dot underscore prices as, and we're going to just click as because I like using the fill in thing. I'm going to do parentheses and then select, and actually just for organization, let's put a tab right there. And I'm going to do enter, tab, and then we're going to do date, enter, ticker, enter, and close. All right. So now this one, and then we're going to do from, because we need to pull the actual data set or the information from somewhere, right? And what I want to show you really quick is how to most easily pull this data. So when we're over here on the right-hand side, what we actually have to do, we're not typing in this, okay? What we actually need is that really long, this long thing right here. And for this specific query, we're actually going to be using the New York Stock Exchange data. So there's 2 ways you can do this. You can hover your cursor above it and do Command C, and that'll actually copy and paste. So I'm just going to show you that. So Command C. I'm going to go over here and do Command V, and now we have this entire table's name here. Or, and just showing you this because we want to show both options, we can go here, we can click these 3 dots, and we can do Add to Editor. Either way works, right? These are both functional ways of adding this information in here. Now, there's a lot more to this query. Like I said, I'm not going to be building this out line by line. I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff here, and then I'm going to walk you through what we're seeing and what we're doing. I think that's actually going to be a better use of our time than me typing all of this stuff out. So you can see we've selected some data up here. We are specifically looking at these stocks that are found in this data set, right? And we figured this out by going in the data earlier and taking a look at it. Obviously, we would do this if we were starting from scratch. We'd want to see this data a little bit more, but we already know this is there. Now what we're doing down here are we're selecting our tortilla prices, right? And so we're doing this. First off, we need to normalize some of the date information. We're finding the average price per kilo, generating it as a new variable here. We can see it's a new variable. If you go to the right-hand side, we can click this little down arrow. You can see no variable that is daily tortilla price exists in this data set for tortilla prices. So this is a brand new one that we're creating, right? Again, we're doing from, we're pulling this data set. So again, that was right here from add to editors where we found this information. And then we're grouping it by date. Right here, what we're doing is we are combining some of the data here. So you can see we're the average of these stock prices, which we already selected up here at the top. We're now combining them here with the average price. And then we're also taking our daily tortilla prices from our tortilla price data set. So you can see this here. We're interjoining them, grouping by, ordering, and then finally selecting these down here. So let's click run. Fingers crossed. Actually, I think, is this an extra? We're going to delete that. I think it should be fine. Let's make sure. All right. So it looks like what we have here, we have successfully combined our data sets. This is awesome, right? So now what we have here, we have the dates, the individual stock prices, and our tortilla prices. All right, so this is a wonderful table. If I wanted to, I could just download these results either as a Parquet file or as a CSV file, or I have the third option here. I can go and create a chart. And you can see something here right now. That's okay. We're going to make something here right now. So first, let's go over here to the right-hand side. To the axis, we're going to have the orientation as horizontal. The category for the show volumes, this is actually what our x-axis is going to look like, right? So I'm going to select date. I'm going to put the title for date. We'll just put that there. And then the series, and this is very critical to know that this is here. You want this to be to show values, because when we're going to go and add a series at the bottom, if we don't have this clicked, then the y-axis won't actually show any numbers, right? So let's make sure we have this, and we'll come back to it and change some things a little bit later so it's easier to tell apart what we're looking at. But first off, we now have our x-axis all set. And we could always rename these variables so it's a little easier to see versus simply just having a couple of them down here. But again, just for the sake of the demo, we're not going to spend time doing that today. So now let's take a look at some of the information we have. So the first one I actually want to take a look at is the tortilla price. So you can see it's going to fill in something automatically. We're going to click this. We're going to go here. We have a bar chart. I'm actually going to create a line chart for this. And what I'm going to do first is look at what we have. So we have our prices for stocks and we have our prices for tortillas. So let's click the tortilla price. And now you can see this has been normalized to the y-axis on the left. Now, we have multiple things we can do here. We have colors we can change. I'm going to make it yellow. I think it's kind of fun. Tortillas can look yellow depending on the ingredients you use. They could look black even if you use purple corn. And we have the display points here that we have. I'm going to get rid of the display points. It's just a preference for me for this chart. I don't think we need them. Below, I do want to fill this in. I kind of like it with line charts when we're filling it in and comparing it to other variables. So we're going to fill it in. It filled in with red. That doesn't quite fit with what we're doing. Let's change that to yellow. Okay, perfect. We don't have any labels. I don't want any on this one, so I'm just going to leave this as select one option, and that's fine. So now what we've done is graph our tortilla prices. All right. We now need to come in and add our stock prices. We can do this a few different ways. We can have our stock prices as bars, or we can have them as lines. Now you can see because the amount of the stock price for CMG is so much different than the tortilla prices over time that this doesn't really work well as a visualization right now, right? It's hard to see any actual information. So what I'm actually going to do is go in here, and you can see this alternate axis, right? So we're going to click this, and look, now we have two different axes that are happening here. The left-hand side was the original one. This is going to be your tortilla prices over here, and this one here is your average stock price for CMG. Now I want to change this a little bit, so we're going to have it from a bar chart. We're actually going to make it a line. And now it's a little bit easier to see compared to what we had before. We're going to keep it pink. That's fine. Again, I don't want to have display points in here. It's not my favorite thing. We're going to keep it like this. And now we're good with CMG. We're going to add one more series. We could add a bunch more if we wanted to for all of these. I simply don't want to just for time-wise, but let's add the Yum price in here. Let's also make this a line chart just to make it a little easier to see. We're going to change the color to black for this one and change that to black too. But we actually want to get rid of the display point, so let's remove that. Okay. Now what we have here are some colors and lines on a chart, but we don't know what they are, right? I mean, I know what they are because I made them with you, but if you're reading or just watching this and you're tuning in now, you might not exactly know what we're looking at. So what I'm actually going to do is go and put in our legend. And you can see I didn't do this in the beginning because you wouldn't have noticed anything really happening. But now that we have multiple different variables happening here and different charts happening on the same area, we need to make sure that we know what these colors actually mean. So let's click Show. And you can see a few things. So we have horizontal. We can orientate it horizontally or vertically. Vertically doesn't really make sense for this chart. So let's go back to horizontal. Position, we can change it to pretty much wherever we want to. It could be top middle, it could be top right. I think top middle is nice just for showing this right now. And we can always align it differently as well. I'm going to keep it as is. So what we're looking at right now is we have our tortilla price here in yellow, and it'll highlight it, right? We have our CMG stock price here in pink, and then our Yum price in black. And you can see it's not really highlighting because it's an actual line versus a filled in one, but you can imagine what it would look like if they were all filled in. Now, we have this. This is really nice. We can see a little bit of a correlation. Tortilla prices seem to be going up gradually. Same with the stock prices of these. Now we can't really attribute that to the same type of thing here, but there might be some correlations that we as researchers or analysts might want to explore more robustly later on. So we have our chart, we have our results. Now let's say I want to share this with someone. What I'm going to do is click these three dots up here next to the run button. What this is going to do is generate me a URL. I can click copy here. I'm now going to go to the top. Let's go back to Twitter really fast. And we're going to do Command V. And here we go. This is very similar to the chart that Alfonso actually created himself to look at the correlation between stock prices and tortillas. Hope this was helpful for you guys to see the capabilities of Baselight today. So remember what we went and did is we went and took a look at finding data, adding them to our query engine, building out our query, looking at how the table functions, going in, creating a chart, adding multiple axes on that chart so that we can see exactly what's happening, make it a little more visually appealing. And then we shared this with the general community, so all of you watching. You can see here on the share page, we also have the actual query code here you can take a look at, plus the table a little bit. I mean, that's the first 500 rows, and there are hundreds of thousands of entries, but you can see in general how this would look. So thank you again for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you are ever interested in trying out Baselight yourself, please send me a message. We are still in our testing phase, but I'm happy to add you to the alpha. And again, thank you for your time. Cheers.